Issues of freedom and privacy become more pertinent every year, worrying people at all ends of the political spectrum. Recently, one of the major conferences on this topic had a panel about the 10th anniversary of the Transparent Society, my book that's subtitled, "Will Technology Force Us to Choose Between Privacy and Freedom?" The Transparent Society kind of broke ground by asking the question of what comes first. I mean, we all want privacy, we all want freedom, but is there some order in which we need them? Does one come before the other? Now, I've had a lot of people pretend to read this book and leap to conclusions about what it's about. They believe that Brin is claiming we should all be naked. We should give up, let Big Brother surveil us, not even try to have privacy. These people have never cracked the spine of the book. There's an entire chapter about how important privacy is as a human desideratum. We wouldn't be human without wanting, deeply desiring, to be able to share secrets intimately with those we trust, intimate behaviors, to be able to plan our business strategies without supervision, to not have the long eye and gaze of the state reaching in on us. These are all fundamental things that human beings will want if they're free. And that's the key notion. If we're free and powerful as citizens, privacy is something we'll negotiate among ourselves, demand, and have, by hook or by crook. It comes in that order because certain rights in the U.S. Constitution are considered contingent rights. They depend on other rights. Now, in some other constitutions, you see in Europe, for example, the notion that privacy is equal to the freedom to know, to the freedom to speak. When you have dozens and dozens of different freedoms, all ranked equally, you can't prioritize. What you can do under the United States Constitution is understand the freedom of property, for example, is alluded to, but it's not there specifically. Freedom of privacy is alluded to, especially in the Fourth Amendment, but it's not there specifically. Because each generation can redefine what it means by the right to property and the right to privacy. What's absolute are those rights that make the others possible. And these are the rights that empower citizens to know when they're being abused, to know when something's going wrong, and then to persuade their fellow citizens to apply the great tricks of the Enlightenment and get things done. Now, what do I mean by the great tricks of the Enlightenment? Throughout human history, most civilizations were shaped like a pyramid, with a few at the top lording it over masses below. These oligarchies, the aristocracies, spent most of their time suppressing those below, with a clear aim, and that was to keep the children of the peasants from competing with their own children. There's perfectly good evolutionary, biological explanations for why we built this pattern onto almost every continent, almost every decade across the last 4,000 years. Find me a human civilization that had agriculture and metallurgy that didn't also feature large men with metal implements taking other men's women and wheat. It's what you'd do. It's what I'd do. Maybe you and I would be good kings. But to rely upon a system in which you had to count on there being good kings, a few really smart guys, to move civilization forward, when their top priority inherently was to stay on top. After 4,000 years, Adam Smith, Ben Franklin, the parents of the Enlightenment said, enough, let's try something else. Lateral power. For the first time in human history, we have a diamond-shaped social structure in which the well-off outnumber the poor. Imperfectly. Sure, terribly imperfectly. But it's the first civilization in which the meek, the average, have some power to hold the mighty accountable. Again, imperfectly. That's not argued. What can be shown is that for the first time they have some. And the tricks that the Enlightenment came up with that empowered average people, and by the way, that definition spread. It was average land-owning white males, and it kept spreading to include more and more and more average people. The tools that they use are tools of the Enlightenment, and they are based upon one concept: reciprocal accountability. The notion that people can hold each other accountable. And there are mechanisms in our civilization by which this reciprocal accountability, can take place. Markets. Adam Smith's great notions of free enterprise, which, unfortunately, most of the people on the right today have never read Adam Smith. Or they would realize that Adam Smith feared and loathed, above all, the rich. Those who were so mighty that they would create oligarchies and cheat and destroy markets. Because this is the pattern of 4,000 years. He didn't say prevent anybody from getting rich. He said keep an eye on them and watch out for their abuses of power. But that's an aside. I'll talk about all that on another occasion, including the implications of the diamond-shaped social structure to citizen power. What I want to say at this is about transparency, and perhaps I'll do another, because there's so much to say about it, is this. Those who say that we can achieve privacy and protect privacy through privacy laws are denying the flux of technology, because every year, Brin's corollary of Moore's law, the cameras get smaller, they get more mobile, they get more numerous, and they get cheaper. Pretty soon you're going to be able to get a roll of penny cams, just like stickers that kids have, and glue them to lampposts all over town. They'd be battery good for a year. What are you going to do in a world like that, where there are cameras absolutely everywhere? Well, at least we'll get rid of those rumors about UFOs. But the fact of the matter is that in such a world, technology is going to prevent you from preventing other people from looking in your direction. Unless you have the power to look back. Steve Mann of the University of Toronto coined the term surveillance, S-O-U-S, valence. Surveillance means looking down from above, and it's the nightmare that we see in George Orwell's 1984. The telescreen in which the party can look at everybody, but nobody can look back. And that's the scariest part. Imagine Orwell's world in which the proletariat could look back at all times at all party officials. It's unimaginable that they would be able to behave the way they did. Surveillance means looking back from below. And what I contend, and I'll back this argument another time, what I contend is that the core thing we have to think of is empowering citizens to look back at the elites. Go throughout human history and tell me of a time when the elites let themselves be blinded. They won't. They don't. They never have. They never will. What you can do is come up with a way to strip the mighty naked. Because to some extent, we've shown that can happen. And if we can have the power to look back, then as knowing citizens, we can vote ourselves some privacy. We can seize some privacy. I know I haven't made a convincing argument so far. It's complex and counterintuitive. But I'll leave you with the words of Robert Heinlein, the great science fiction author, who said this: "The only thing achieved by most privacy laws is to make the spy bugs smaller." We need to look back. We need to aggressively, pugnaciously, assertively be a people who are dedicated to the arts of knowing.